great wake-up call. I don't know if you agree with me, but definitely women are running the show. And I think it's good. It's not about empowerment. I think you are definitely less selfish than the men. And it's my personal conviction. And definitely we need to listen to you. So Sarah, I'm sure you are listening behind the stage. But Sarah, come here. Please, a round of applause for Sarah. We have to make a deal. I know you are coming in Riyadh end of October, but I would like to have a full summit dedicated to food security, because I think it's one of the emergencies. And now we are connecting the dots, because we spoke about, thanks to Mike Milken, how healthcare investing in bio-research is absolutely crucial. We had the wake-up call on food security. We spoke about climate change. And I realized when I met Alexandra Cousteau, thank you, Alexandra, for being here. And I think Alexandra do not need any, I would say, introduction, except that she is the granddaughter of the famous Jacques Cousteau, the man who helped us to discover the beauty of oceans. But she's a filmmaker. She's also now an explorer, and she will talk to us about her priority. But we are connecting the dots because thanks to you, I realized that one of the passions that we have in common, oceans, the love of oceans and seas, is also connected to climate change issue. And my question is very simple. First of all, why your priority is ocean still today?
Well, thank you, Richard, for inviting me to speak today, and hello, everyone. Personally, I think that I never had a choice in the matter. I went on my first expedition when I was 6 months old, and I could swim before I could walk. My grandfather taught me to scuba dive when I was 7 in the south of France, and so I would say the oceans have always been a critical part of my life, but the purpose and the passion that my family had for the oceans was incredibly influential and has really set me on my path. But as a little girl, traveling with my family and exploring with them and seeing extraordinary places around the world, over the course of my life, those places have disappeared. And my lifetime is, I think, it stands out because that is the period of time where we have lost more of our ocean than ever before in human history.
Do we have data about that?
Sorry?
Do we have some data? Can you share with us what happened in the past?
Scientists will tell you that we've lost half of our blue natural capital, which means half of the...
Half? In how many years or decades?
Since my grandfather first started
So in 30 years?
In 30, 40 years, yeah.
We lost 50%.
Yeah. And that is, the fish, the whales, the life that lives there, the life that feeds people, the life that creates tourism, the life that fills us with joy, has disappeared. And we are on a trajectory where we will soon reach tipping points from which it will be difficult to come back. And so when we look at the ocean and look at the importance of the ocean, the ocean regulates our climate. It creates every other breath we take of oxygen. It feeds over 500 million people per day. And that's with depleted fisheries, because if we restored our fisheries, it could feed 1 billion people, hungry people, a protein meal every day. So our oceans can contribute enormously to our economies. We are seeing that potential is being lost, but it doesn't have to be that way.
So what should we do?
Well, interestingly, I think that one of the things that we have to do is follow in Sarah's footsteps and start to look at the data, really look at the data on a global basis and understand the trends, be able to do predictive analysis of our global ocean. That doesn't exist. A lot of the tools that we're using to rebuild our oceans are in the Stone Age. They lag far behind every other sector. You look at clean energy, you look at mobility. We are so advanced in what we're doing, and there's such a competitive desire to innovate and invest and create the next iteration of that sector. And you know, with oceans, we're still hanging coral fragments on strings in the ocean, hoping to be able to replant them in the reef and have them survive.
Let's talk about that, because when we spoke many times, you told me, we cannot stop, unfortunately, what is wrong. People will continue the bad habits despite what we say, despite the advertising campaign, despite raising red flags. People continue and will continue to pollute, to put plastic in the oceans, etc. Let's focus on rebuilding. Can you tell us more about rebuilding? What do you want to do? And what the community here could help, the private sector, the investors. You want to rebuild, you want to restore. Can you tell us more about that?
So after having watched this decline over the course of my life, and at times getting very depressed about it, I realized that in order to rebuild our oceans, in order to restore what we've lost, we can't focus on the risk of losing. We have to focus on the opportunities of rebuilding. And this means a lot of things. It means that you know, even the level of ambition that we bring to the issue, we often talk about sustaining what we have, protecting what we have, conserving what we have left. In my opinion, conserving 50% of something is an insufficient level of ambition. So I think that the most important thing, and I mean this, is that we have to increase our ambition in terms of innovation, ingenuity. How do we bridge the gap between where we are and that future abundant ocean that science tells us is possible? And we have a roadmap to get there. We know that the oceans potentially have an Amazon rainforest in terms of carbon sequestration in the ocean. How do we restore our lost ocean forests, our seagrass beds, our mangroves, our kelp forests? And how do we expand that footprint further through seaweed farming, which offers us a regenerative industrial feedstock that we can plug into all these different industrial processes, and they give us a regenerative alternative. To get to a better place, we need a vision of where to go, or else we just react our way into the future. And we're reacting our way into the climate crisis. We're reacting our way into the biodiversity crisis. We're reacting our way into, you know, a future that is not the future that we dream of for our children.
So practically, how we can rebuild?
Well,
you have some very concrete ideas, correct?
Yes.
And you have a project called 2050, no, if I'm not
Oceans
mistaken.
2050.
Can you tell us more about Ocean 2050?
Well, Oceans 2050 was really born of a conversation with Professor Carlos Duarte, who's one of the leading marine ecologists of our time. And he wrote a paper in Nature a couple years ago called Rebuilding Marine Life. And when we talk about rebuilding oceans and increasing our ambition and changing how we articulate the problem, a lot of that needs to be felt in our science. So our science has been mostly about the risks of losing, you know, and measuring loss rather than doing science about rebuilding ecosystems. And so this paper was all about how we rebuild marine life to abundance by 2050. And I had that call with Carlos that really changed my life. And I said, Carlos, is it inevitable that by the time my children are my age in 2050, our oceans will be dead? Because that is the trajectory that we are on. And he said, no, it's not a foregone conclusion. We can actually get onto a different pathway where we rebuild our oceans to the abundance that your grandfather once knew. And so to do that, we need to do a number of things, from restoring ecosystems, addressing fisheries, mitigating climate change, but that pathway is clearly laid out. And I think what is exciting is that we are, like my grandfather once said, when he was asked how it was possible for him to do all the things that he did. And he responded that he lived in his lucky moment in time, because it was a moment where World War II had just ended, and everybody had a television, but there was no content. And nobody had ever invented scuba diving. Nobody knew what was under the surface of the ocean, but there was a vehicle through which to tell those stories. And so that collided with his own personal passions and his penchant for invention and imagination and adventure and exploration. And that came together to create a moment in time where he was able to do what he did. And I think that when I look at this moment in time and the conversations that are taking place this week, we are in a similar situation. We have the digital sophistication. We have the engineering capabilities. We have data, big data, and AI, and all of these different tools at our disposal to, for the first time ever, truly understand what's happening in our oceans and deploy solutions at scale, not to protect what we have left, but to rebuild what we've lost, benefiting not just the ocean, but benefiting the billions of people that depend on the ocean for their local economy, for coastal resilience, for food security, for livelihoods, for so many other things, not to mention the oxygen we breathe.
Alexandra, we only have 1 minute, and if you allow me, you're a member of the advisory board of an amazing project called NEOM. Mm-hmm. Allow me to ask you one question. Can you tell us, what do you think about NEOM?
You know, what has fascinated me from the very beginning, because I've been on the advisory board from the beginning, has been the principles that have articulated the vision that NEOM has put forward and has shaped all of the ideas for the development. So as I said before, to get to a better place, you need a vision of where to go. Otherwise, you react your way into the future. And at NEOM, those principles were very clear. And the one that was at the top of the list was putting nature first. How do we put nature first in NEOM, which is the size of Belgium? How do we make sure that our footprint, our development, all of our activities, our industries allow nature to thrive? And 95% of NEOM is a nature reserve. The 9 or 10 million people that are scheduled to live in NEOM at some point between now and 2050 will live within 5%. The line is 1%. And so to me, it really underscores how having a vision and having a direct line of sight to where you want to go can help shape the ideas and the efforts of communities to create a better world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for someone who is a dreamer but also a doer, Alexandra Cousteau. Thank you, Alexandra.
Richard. Thank you.